Now it's time to welcome our next guest, Anthony Saccaro. Anthony is the founder and president of Providence Financial Insurance Services in Woodland Hills, California. He's been in the business for approximately 20 years and has twice been named one of California's top financial leaders by Forbes magazine. Anthony is a widely published author and a frequent guest on Fox Business News, CNBC, and other financial media outlets. He's also a good friend of the income generation and, more importantly, a very close friend to yours truly. Anthony, thanks for being here in studio with us today.
David, thank you for having me.
You've come almost 3,000 miles to be here with us on the income generation, and we appreciate that. I want to talk to you grassroots as a guy who's got boots on the ground with those top 10 things. Okay, now Peter Chur, as you heard, talked a little bit about the debt reduction. So I don't want to talk to you about debt reduction. Why don't you start by talking to our income generation members about goals, why it's so important to figure out your specific individual retirement goals, what they mean to you and how they might look and how much they might cost.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest mistakes that retirees make is they don't set a goal. And the challenge is if you don't set a goal, then how do you know if your particular strategies are conflicting with or supporting that goal? Yeah. And that's really the issue, is if you don't know where you're going, if you don't put the target, then you don't know if you hit the target.
Right.
And I think there's several areas. I think there has to be a debt elimination goal. Hopefully you get into retirement and as your earlier guest said, hopefully you're debt free by the time you get there. I think you need to have a lifestyle goal. I think you need to know specifically what kind of life you want to live in retirement. And then you have to have an investment goal to make sure that you are investing to support the lifestyle you want. And then you have to have a legacy goal. What do you want to happen? Because we know that we're all going to pass at some point.
So lifestyle goal. What are some of those common lifestyle goals for some of us that are a few years out of retirement that are watching the show? They're saying, well, I don't know what retirement's going to look like. I don't know. I'll just keep doing what I've always done. Except you're not, because you're not going to be going to work anymore. What are some of those common lifestyle goals that you see our income generation members desiring as they approach retirement?
Yeah, interestingly enough, you've got the fun lifestyle goals like see the grandkids and do the traveling and the cruises and stuff like that. But the reality is with regards to lifestyle, there's one common thread that every retiree wants with their lifestyle, and that is not to have to worry about running out of money at the end of it. And the challenge is no matter what you want to do in your retirement, whether it is traveling or spending time with the grandkids or golfing, the reality is, David, is that it's going to take income to do that. And you must have the goal of knowing how you want your retirement to be so that you can know if you're getting enough income to support it. And most people are not getting enough income from Social Security and their pensions. Most people have to supplement those sources of income through their portfolios. And it's been a big problem that we've seen that people have that they have not done that.
Well, it's like we always talk about in this television show. We talk about going from the G to the I, going from growth to income, or going from the accumulation years to the distribution years. That's the only way you can be sure that you don't run out of money. So, in the 50 seconds we have left in this segment, tell our income generation viewers then, why it's so important to go from the G to the I as you approach retirement.
Yeah, this is probably the biggest mistake that I see people make, and that is there's a different strategy when you're in the growth phase of life as opposed to when you are in the income phase of life. The reason is when you are in the growth phase of life, if you want to start getting cash out of your portfolio because you have to, because of required minimum distributions, or because you want to, because you actually want to spend some money and do some things in retirement, then what you have to do is you have to sell shares to get the income you need. And that means cannibalizing your portfolio. And if you live long enough, you're going to be out of money. Well, as the income generation has shared for the years that it's been on, if you invest for dividends and interest and you can live off the interest or dividends without selling shares, you'll protect your principal along the way.
And that's what it's all about. Perfect. We need to take a commercial break. We'll be right back here with more on the income generation. Stick with us. We'll be back with Anthony Saccaro and David Scranton. And now it's time to bring back our good friend, Anthony Saccaro, founder and president of Providence Financial and Insurance Services. Anthony, thanks again for sticking around.
Thank you for having me. I love being here.
So we talked about asset allocation, the need to make that change to income from the G to the I. When should people start making that allocation as that allocation change as they prepare for retirement?
Yeah, good question. So I think it depends on where we are in the economic cycle, because ironically, investing for the I, for the income, is actually more conservative and really safer than investing for the G.
Of course it is.
Sometimes people think that, oh, I'm only 5 years away from retirement, so I've got 5 more years of growth. Well, that's really not true if the market goes down for the next 2 or 3 years, as you know from watching this show, and that I believe is very likely. So if you're in retirement and you need to start getting income from your portfolio, certainly you have to invest for that stage appropriately. Or if you're within maybe 5 or so years of retirement, I think it's time to start focusing on principal protection. And instead of just socking it in the bank and earning 0, at least you're getting 4, 5, 6% along the way through dividends and interest.
So now with the market being high, it might be a good time to consider, hey, even if I'm a little more than 5 years out, maybe I should start considering lowering that stock market exposure anyways, going from the G to the I. But you're saying even if the market looks more opportune, if it's lower, you think there's more growth potential, still, 5 years is like the drop dead date. By the time you're 5 years out, you really need to start making that transition, correct?
Oh, 100% correct. I mean, you go any longer than that, and you're really in danger of having your portfolio be at a lower value. And now when you retire, you start having to sell shares of the investments that you have, and that's when you don't want to sell shares.
Yeah, you have to sell shares, or you have to go back to work, or you have to live on less income. And none of my clients and none of your clients want to do either of those things. Okay. So let's pivot for a second. I want to talk to you about the long-term care aspect. How important is it to focus on the long-term care portion, the expenses, and tell us about that.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely huge. The reality is that long-term care right now is going to cost you about $100,000, especially in California, where I'm from. And if you want it to be done at home, it could cost you $150,000 or even more, $175,000 a year. The challenge is coming up with that type of money, and a lot of people don't have insurance for it because it's just super, super expensive. But there's actually something out there called asset-backed insurance, where they've actually combined life insurance with long-term care insurance, so that if you need long-term care insurance, then what winds up happening is it will cover you. But if you don't ever use it, like we don't want, and you wind up passing away, a big death benefit goes to your beneficiaries.
So instead of trying to pay $5,000 or $10,000 or even $15,000 a year between 2 spouses for insurance premiums, you're saying it could be done with a lump sum deposit.
100%. We don't know if you ever need long-term care, but we're pretty sure you're going to die.
That's right. It has a death benefit. And the life insurance is the one type of insurance that always pays off eventually. Anthony will be right back. And we'll be right back with more here on the Income Generation. Stay with us.